Well, good afternoon, everyone. For the first time in quite a long time, probably 10 years or longer, I actually ran a race this past weekend. And race tag technology has changed a lot since I was last active in the sport, at least in terms of time stuff. And I thought it might be fun to have a look at the race tag that was affixed to the back of my bib in that race. Now, when I used to run before, most of the tags that people used were active tags which attached to your shoes. So there was a chip, an antenna of some sort, and a battery in that. And when you went over the start-finish line or the finish line, whatever, it would presumably send its signal out to the receiver. And those you had to return at the end because they were, worth a few dollars. New ones, you end up with a piece of foam attached to the back of your bib, which I've taken off here. And if you strip that off, you'll see that there is an antenna and something on it. So this, at least at first, looks a bit like a bow tie shaped antenna, sort of like what you'd expect, but it's actually, if you look at it closely, it's tied together in the bottom and it has a complex shape, and there's a gap in the middle there and a couple of dots, which I assume are not part of the antenna itself. So let's see if I can zoom in a little more. This phone is not ideal for this purpose, so I'll come down a little more and maybe you can see what I'm looking at here. So there's a gap here. Oh, the end of this knife is broken off, and a couple of dots, and everything else seems to be a sort of continuous, I'm assuming aluminum surface here. So I think the chip has to be at the gap, and if I look at that very closely with a magnifier, there's a dark material. So I don't know if I'm going to have any success, but I'm going to try to excavate that. So let's see if I can do this on camera. Apologies if this moves around a lot. So what I'm going to try to do is cut a little square out here. And I do wish this knife was a little better. I have to find my stash of blades and see if we can get this up and see if we can see a chip on the other side. Oh, yeah, we do. Okay. So you can see a little black thing right there at the tip of the blade. I can't really zoom in more, right? So right there is the little chip, and that's kind of all there is to it. So you can see why the cost of these things has come down so much that they can effectively throw them out at the end of every race, as opposed to, an active component with a more complex antenna and all that. And this, I guess this is probably no different than any sort of inventory control system that's used in warehouses and the like. It wouldn't really need to be any different in terms of the technology, I would imagine. Anyhow, this is an interesting device. I mean, it's interesting how much things changed in 10 or 15 years when, this was I don't think for, the kinds of races I run that this kind of timing came in before the 90s. And then we had a few years running of that, and then the stuff is so ubiquitous that it's disposable. Anyway, hope that was interesting. Thanks for watching.